about Growing Criminal Justice Professional series, which is our new online course. So we really hope you can sit back and learn a little bit about how we went about doing it, why we completed this series, and what the benefits it might be if you are up for looking at it. So here with Dan Reynolds, and hopefully Cam Stevens will be joining us a little bit later. He's currently in an airport, so forgive us for that. But I'm really hopeful me and Dan can have a really good chat about it either way. So, oh, Cam, you're here. Wonderful. I've just seen that Cam's here. So let's do a little bit of introductions first. So if I can introduce Dan Reynolds over to you, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I'm Dan Reynolds. I work for Grow, Transform, Belong. My main focus with the organisation is I do a lot of our kind of prison project work. So working in prisons, both in the UK, but also internationally, looking across kind of best practice and what kind of cultural challenges that establishments may have and how we can make prisons work more effectively for everybody. In terms of this work, the Growing Criminal Justice Professionals course, we all had a lot to chip in and kind of shape around and get international best practice in there. And just trying to pull all that together has just been so enjoyable and engaging for myself to do and be part of.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. Hi, Cam.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing? We can hear you. LinkedIn can hear you, and it's lovely
Really
you're here.
well.
And I appreciate you're in an airport on your way to the UN to spread the message of Justice 2.0. But do you want to just introduce yourself, Cam?
Yeah, sure. My name is Cam Stevens. I am a senior digital consultant for Grow, Transform, Belong and Penal Reform Solutions. And in terms of, I guess, the launch of our CPD course, I'm just so excited. It's been a labor of love, and in terms of all of the passion, all of the energy, all of the knowledge that is packed within this course, I don't think there's anything like it in the space. So I'm really, really excited about what is going to happen when we launch this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to echo both that and Dan's points, as you all probably know, my name's Sarah Lewis, and I'm the director of Grow, Transform, Belong. And we have been working on this for a really long time. So this was originally our kind of induction training into the organisation. We kind of put down all the things that really mattered to us, I guess, in terms of what people would have the resources and knowledge and opportunities to learn about and why that was important. So from that, I guess COVID kicked in, and with that we started thinking about maybe we could do online. And then last summer, wasn't it, chaps? Last summer we kind of were just like, right, let's create some courses that can be really accessible, really meaningful for a range of criminal justice professionals, to really give them the skills, knowledge, confidence to deliver good work in this system, knowing that the culture is really difficult, but almost focusing on what are the things that are really lacking and how can we reignite motivation, reignite passions around working with people who have offended, but also to be part of that culture change, and what kind of skills might we need to kind of do that. So like Cam said, it was a labor of love. It was really enjoyable. We got to meet a load of people that wanted to get involved with the courses along the way. And it's full of lots of different perspectives. So it's for anyone who works within criminal justice. It's not specifically for prison staff or probation staff or third sector staff. It's for anyone who is passionate about making a difference. And it gives people the tools to hopefully support them in making the difference that they seek, and the difference that means hopefully so much to them. So I guess just before we kind of tell you all about the juiciness of this program, just a little bit about the kind of campaign that it fits under. So Justice 2.0 was launched on the 20th of February, and it was all about how can we co-design, co-create and co-own solutions to upgrade the justice system. And that's anyone who is passionate about change, what that upgrade might look like, but really focusing on culture change and how together and through collaborations we can bring about that kind of positive change. So key commitments of that is around giving people knowledge, which is why we've launched this course. It's about being courageous, trying new things, being open to getting outside of that comfort zone and looking at how we can adopt a growth mindset and a learning culture across our justice system. it's about recognizing good and giving people the tools to allow us to recognize good. And it's also about that kind of key notion of compassion. So how we can do that in a really, really compassionate way that really sees staff, sees the challenges that they faced, and gives them some kind of guidance around how to increase their well-being at work, how to safeguard them from vicarious trauma. All of these things are packed into this beautiful set of short online courses. So my first question to you both is, firstly, why you think it's important for us to invest in staff right now, right here. So Cam, why do you think it's important?
So I guess my experience in the justice system on both sides of the fence is that there's some really, really passionate people who want to make a difference and who want to be cultural leaders and change agents. But in terms of the tools that are available currently, there is a gap, and especially for those, I guess, who are coming from a Gen Z, I guess, background. You know, we have a new emergence of people who are coming into the justice system, and in terms of the formats, the way that things are delivered, it is not conducive to the new style of learning that people are adapting. So we've made something that's really accessible for those individuals who are coming into the sector, because we understand the needs of this new generation of cultural leaders.
Right. So there's something there about generation. There's something, and that's the thing about Gen Zs. I guess our new workforce is all about activism, making a difference, equality, diversity. So, but also about bite-sized learning. We're really busy, so this was designed for busy professionals with busy professionals. So, us having a background in prisons or probation or third sector, it was about how do we create something that's really accessible, really meaningful, and really valuable for those individuals with that in our hearts and minds. What about for you, Dan? Why is it important to invest in staff right now?
I think one of the main reasons that whenever we look at why do we invest in staff, it's going to be around retention. If we look at criminal justice sector as a whole, retention is and has been for now quite some time a major issue and factor in terms of how do we improve the systems, how do we move from justice 1.0 to 2.0. If we do not sort retention, making any change is probably not going to be long lasting and dedicated. So I think it's, you know, investing in people in terms of knowledge, understanding, but also giving that belief that people are willing to invest in them and do want to see them develop and grow and become bigger parts of the solution within criminal justice. I think will kind of attract them to not have their heads turned by other organisations or other careers. We know that criminal justice is a difficult sector to work in, so why not give people all the tools that they need to thrive in it?
Yeah, and I think the reason why I would say maybe it's important for me is, I guess, the absence of that currently. And I think for me it's really hard to watch young professionals coming into the system and experiencing high levels of harm and trauma, and maybe not being able to have the skills to navigate that, and the kind of damage that does, really. And, you know, we've got some people that come in, we kind of see, I always remember Cam saying, we see people coming into the job really excited and like, I'm going to make a difference. And then 4 or 5 months down the line, they're really starting to feel the impact of the culture that they're engulfed in. And I think for me, there's something about where do we, you know, where does our passion lies? How can we align that to the work that we're doing at Grow, Transform, Belong? It's all about how can we bring about a healthy culture and what role do people play in that, and not to underestimate that we're all in the culture either way. So we're either going to make a good impact or a negative impact. So can we give people the skills and the knowledge to be the best version of themselves in a really, really challenging place? So so a little bit about where it came about. I did reflect on this actually in prep for the live, and I do remember having a conversation when I was an academic, probably about 10 years ago, and saying, not even longer actually, maybe 15 years ago, and saying, do you know what would be really great is if we did a kind of real kind of skills based. It was about a kind of academic knowledge, but it was really accessible. It was all about building skills and confidence. And I remember the academic I was speaking with was like, no, staff don't need that, you know. And I think in the 10 years that we've been operating at PRS and GTB, I guess that seed has just been watered over the last kind of decade, and really with the evidence that, you know, I think people do need that level of investment. And therefore, I guess we looked at last summer when we had an away day, how can we create something that's bigger than ourselves? You know, instead of us going in, I know Cam and Dan, you both go into, whether that's approved premises or prisons, or just generally staff, third sector, probation, you go in and you do a wonderful job, but how can we scale that so we can make a bigger difference and we can bring about kind of positive change more globally, essentially. So it is an international course. It has got a lot of international input and some really incredibly passionate kind of international partners that have come on board with us to talk about their experiences and how we can best navigate this space in a meaningful way. But I guess that's where it kind of came from. And then with that, we had all of the magic of the team. So whether that was Justine, whether that's Cam, Kaz, we all put in something, and we all utilised our strengths to think about, right, based on Dan's experience of being a prison officer, what that looked like, and based on Carrie-Anne's experience of being a probation officer, you know, working within probation, what does that kind of look like? So we wanted it to be multidisciplinary, because there's just something about stripping everything back and thinking about how do we relate to people, and how do we see people, and how do we support the process of change, and create the conditions of change for those people so we can best serve. So it is an absolute labor of love, like you say. It is absolutely lovely that we had fun in making it, and I really hope that whoever does it really sees that we did have a lot of fun making it, because we wanted it to be interactive and relaxed and not too formal and not really heavy academically, but very much be research driven in terms of its knowledge and its content, really. So the next question, I guess, for me is, I guess, something about the current state of play. So what do you see if we're thinking about adopting a learning culture within prisons, within probation, third sector, across the justice system, and including the community of lived experience folks that are really keen to get into this space and are in this space to bring about change? What do you see, I guess, from that perspective, in terms of what is the relationship and the culture we have around learning within justice more broadly? So Dan, what would you say?
So I think for me, this is one of the clearest examples where, yes, it is one HMPPS, but it clearly isn't one HMPPS. When you look at probation, there is a clear drive and target that, you know, you get certain degrees, you can then become a senior probation officer. Obviously, if you do not have that formal qualification, you can step in for a trainee role. But again, then the element is that you go and you build on your learning and your knowledge in a more practical environment setting. So two different ways, but very much based around learning culture. When you then flip that into the prison service, where it's 6 weeks basic standard training now, I mean, if you look at that compared to countries and organizations around the world, we are really low now. You look at, and it's not just a case, I know a lot of people say Norway does a lot of training, but it's not just Norway, whether it's Germany or Holland, all these different European countries, they invest a lot of training at the beginning. So Germany, it's a 2-year training. It's a year of theory and how and kind of what is needed to be working in the correctional settings. And then they do a year of practical based learning. We expect a lot of the prison service and prison officers in this country. And I was only having this conversation last week with a couple of residents in one of the prisons we're working in. And we set people up to kind of fail, really. It's 6 weeks of training, limited basics, because in 6 weeks, you've got all the topics to cover that you may ever come up with in the criminal justice system. And in this case, prison service specifically. And we just don't give them the background knowledge. So one of the things that to try and stop corruption being a big issue is we say, okay, well, make it us v them, make the people in prison the enemy, because we don't have time to teach you how to build professional, responsible, trusting relationships that are based on achieving shared goals together. And because we don't have that time to teach you that, instead we're going to teach you, don't build any relationships, keep them at arm's length. And this way you can kind of keep yourself safe at times. But it's very basic with probably harmful, if any, outcomes at all. So I think it's looking at all of that and going, how do we fix that in this current guise? And I think, the prison service brought in an apprenticeship, and because it was too expensive, that's been dropped. So again, when we were building this, we thought, how can we make it affordable so that as many people can do it as possible, and money isn't the main barrier to learning. And I think, so that's kind of where I see it. There's lots of different settings in criminal justice, and it's, if we want HMPPS to be seen as one thing they need to combine on is learning important. And if it is like we think it is, then we need to invest in our staff and give them the learning that they need and they want.
And I think there's something, when I listened to you there, about it's not necessarily just about these courses, is it? These courses, I hope, will bring about cultural habits. That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about how do we support learners in creating habits that are going to help them reflect at work and help them understand what does a good day look like, and what does a not so good day look like, and why is that, and what is the emotions and the impact that comes from that. So it is about giving people the tools to really think about learning in a much longer term way, which for me, there's something about, we do a lot of front end training and not an awful lot of continuous professional development. And then when everything falls apart and people get put on performance management, that's quite a punitive and kind of difficult process that we're kind of in. So, I really hope that these CPD courses, they are bite-sized, but they are quite targeted about whether it's relationships, whether it's about reflective practice, that you could give people, or people who are struggling in terms of their performance could buy. We've tried to keep the costs super, super low so that it makes it as accessible as possible, so that they are given the skills so they can grow and they can thrive in an environment that's really difficult. Cam, what do you see? Oh, you're mute, my friend. You're on mute.
I apologize. I'm in a busy airport, so I just didn't want no background noise. But
That's
I definitely echo what you and Dan were just talking about in terms of, the one HMPPS, in terms of, giving people really accessible training where they can actually have that time to go and implement. And I think one of the things that I really love about what we've created is that it is 10% theory and 90% application. And I think this is something that the current training that is being delivered across the sector is lacking. I think also the fact that, we've opened this up to all people across the sector, including those who have got lived experience, is something that I'm really passionate about and championing, because the people who are coming from the lived experience community, they have many barriers to entry into any kind of profession. And with, I guess the traction or the understanding of that, people who have gone through the system, they have a special part to play in this solution, and giving them the skills to go and be cultural change agents is something that I'm really, really proud about. But in terms of, I guess, some of the things that I see really hindering us is there is a lot of inoperability across the state systems, and people don't talk to each other. I guess from my experience, prisons, probations, and approved premises, which I have got a special place for in my heart, we need to start working together a lot more cohesively across the board. I see so many passionate people who really want to make a difference. But if we can give them the skills, give them the tools to be those cultural change agents, I think we're going to really, really start to make an impact, not just in the criminal justice system, but across society as a whole.
Yeah, I love that. And I think for me, this is just the beginning. We've done these 7 courses, which is kind of like the backbone, the foundations of, not only the work that we do, but the work that can really support others to build meaningful relationships with people in the justice system. But I kind of think the Growth Academy more broadly is all about how do we continue to co-create, co-design courses that can really help people, whether that's around leadership, whether that's around the lived experience standards that Cam is currently just about to jump on a plane to talk about in Geneva. You know, for me, there's something about how can we do that, but how can we do that collaboratively? You know, all profits that go from this course, you know, they reinvest back into social good. So it is an opportunity where people can not only invest in themselves, but know that £50 a course is going to go into culture change, or it's going to go into sponsoring people that maybe can't afford the course. It's very much about how can we bring about positive change, and how can we continue that, and offer people our knowledge and make that really open and transparent. And I guess there's something for me about honesty, you know, like Justice 2.0 is all about courage, isn't it? And about having challenging conversations. And I think we have a lot of challenging conversations within the programme. The series is all about how do we overcome vicarious trauma, or what does moral injury really mean? You know, when we are kind of told that we've got to do something, but that doesn't fit in with our kind of morals or are aligned to our kind of values. All of these kind of things we talk about corruption. We talk about relationships that get too close, and what are the kind of mechanisms that will enable us to be more aware of that, so that we're able to stay in a really positive relationship, so that we can have those boundaries that are so important, not only for us, but also for the people that we kind of serve. And it's also not necessarily just about working with people who are in contact with the justice system. It's about working with our peers. It's about working with our leaders and our managers, and having a really good understanding of what the relationships look like there, and when there's conflicts in teams, when there's disputes, when there's discrimination, what are the kind of things that we can do, and how that can bring about culture change. Because at the moment, a lot of that gets pushed under the carpet, and a lot of that doesn't get talked about, and people are, you know, potentially kind of going to work in fear, or going to work too scared to talk. And for me, there's something about, let's give people the skills so that they feel that they can do that. And this just to contribute. This isn't a silver bullet. This isn't the answer to everything. This is our way, one of our ways to say we care for you, and we believe that you have a place, you know, a place to belong within the justice system and within our community more broadly. And how can we go about co-defining, co-creating a culture that is all about daily learning, and every day is a learning day. And how that can really support our growth, but how it can support our peers, our leaders, those we serve, and the organisations more broadly. Yeah. So lovely. Okay, so what's in the course, folks? You must be desperate to know. So the course you can find on our website, as you can see under there. Justine's placed our website, www.growtransformbelong.com. You'll have more information about how to register for the learning platform, which is called Talent LMS. You'll register for free, and then with that you'll see the 7 courses that are on offer, and a little bit about them, a breakdown about what their content is, and yeah, you'll be able to purchase them yourselves if you're an individual that's passionate about change, but also if you're an organisation and thinks, do you know what, I'd love to have this as part of our induction, or I'd love to have it as part of our continuous professional development, then just get in touch with us and we can support you in that. And also, you know, deliver, if you want, reflective sessions on a month or after each module with your teams. That's something that we would be absolutely love to do, to really think about what does it really mean to you and your organisation, and how we can apply all of this kind of learning. So the course is 7 smaller courses. They take approximately 10 hours. So they're relatively short. And with that, they've got a lot of different ways in which the format of them is very, very different in lots of different ways. And the reason for that is essentially what we know about maybe learning styles, that we've got some challenges where you can get in there and test things out, and think about how the methods really apply to your day-to-day work. You've got podcast kind of recordings, you've got audios as well as videos, where we've had our conversations with those international experts around the world, really focusing on what matters and what does I guess research tell us about the importance of particular themes within the courses. But every course has got a very similar structure. You kind of go in, do a kind of pre-assessment and a post-assessment. That's just so that we can have a look and see how effective the course is and how we can make things better. You'll have an opportunity to tell us what you think of the course. Again, really, really value that feedback. Good or bad, please do talk to us about what the things that we can do to make it better. And we will continue to evolve the course based on that feedback. So it's not wasted in terms of your contributions there. The first module is all about positive criminology. So we very much focus a lot, I guess, in terms of the new way of thinking, is all about how do we build people's strengths? How do we work in a trauma-informed way? How do we support the process of desistance, which is basically how we support people moving away from crime? And how do we understand people? You know, what are the kind of ways in which we can understand the theories that underpin why people behave they do? But it's very much about growth, strengths-based kind of work alongside restorative justice and things like the Good Lives model. And then at the end of it, we talk about the growth methodology. So that's about post-traumatic growth, which is very much this idea that when things happen and when things happen that are quite difficult, how do we pull good learning from them, knowing that maybe we are sitting in a culture where people are quite reactive and people are quite can behave in ways that kind of respond to that kind of toxic environment sometimes. So positive criminology is all about ideas. It's kind of the foundations, but it is also about how do we make those things real? How do we make those ideas real in our everyday work? We've then got a whole course on relationships. So this, I guess, originated from my PhD stuff, but ultimately it's about how do we build meaningful relationships? How do we manage conflicts? How do we maintain professional boundaries so we can switch off at the end of the day? How do we repair things when things don't go to plan and we make mistakes, which invariably as practitioners we do? How we work together in the team, how we show self-compassion. So it's not necessarily just about the relationship you have with others, it's about the relationship you have with yourself. You know, how do we prepare ourselves for challenging conversations or vital conversations that we might have that can really help that change process? I mean, that's the thing about ruptures, is that ruptures take place, but from that we get to learn more about each other and more about our own values and our own feelings. From that, we then go on to reflective practice. So it's about how do we give and receive feedback? How do we set goals around reflection? How do we embed it in our work? And then moving on to growth, the module around growth, which again is all about you. It's about what brings you meaning. How do you find purpose in your work? How do you support the creation of a learning culture? What brings you joy at work? How do you find your voice and what you want to say? And how do you want to talk about that and share your passions based on your lived experience of the justice system? But also, how do we bring about kind of positive environments? How do we create those? And how do we stay healthy? How do we find a really holistic kind of balance to things, not only thinking about in work, but outside of work, when we're walking in nature? It's all about your well-being and how we kind of grow. We then move into growing professionals. So it's about giving you the tools to really support yourself. Again, what professionalism means, what's, you know, how we can support well-being, and proactive resilience, which is how we plan for difficulties, knowing that our culture is really problematic, and also what strategies can we have to cope with vicarious trauma, which is the kind of ripple effect of working with people that have maybe experienced trauma in their childhood or experienced trauma as a result of a crime. And then it's about values-based practice and emotional intelligence. So really thinking about how do we perspective take, how do we recognize our own emotions and the emotions of others, and how are we good role models? So that's all about pro-social modeling. So how can we show up? How can we be a good role model for our team, for the people we serve, so that we can really progress and grow over the course of our work and our time in the justice system? So once we've kind of really focused on the key ideas, what relationships look like, and really invested in staff, the next course is all about growing others. So knowing what we know about ourselves, it's then about saying, right, okay, so what exactly does diversity and inclusion look like? How do we engage people? How do we motivate people? What do the international best practice say to us about that? And how do we build really kind of key skills in listening so that we can help people and really see them as an individual? And then when you didn't think you thought it was maybe too good to be true, we have our last course, which puts it all together and says, do you know what? you've grown your knowledge, you've grown yourselves, you're growing others, but let's step back a little bit and think about culture. And let's think about what do we want to let go of and associate with Justice 1.0? How do we become leaders? How can we create a healthy culture? Never underestimating the influence you kind of make. So that's the course. Any reflections, Dan or Cam, in terms of the course? Any best bits that you kind of think, wow, this is a really good bit that maybe people would particularly value, having created aspects of it? I appreciate you may not have seen all aspects of the course, but are there any bits? Dan, for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the real stories within it. So obviously, as the course has been made by people who have lived and worked within criminal justice settings, it's where we've taken theory or taken learning and we've put it into the real context of what we have seen, what we've been through, to hopefully give people that more meaningful learning. So, for example, one bit that I kind of did with Carrie Ann is we talked about post-traumatic growth. And with that, I kind of share with the learners my journey of how I went through an assault at work and kind of what steps did I have to go through and what support did I receive from managers that worked really well, and how we should be looking at that when we are supporting colleagues who are going through similar issues in the criminal justice setting. So again, it's where we've taken the theory such as post-traumatic growth and put it into a real life context.
Lovely. Thank you. What about for you, Cam?
So I guess for me, I had the privilege of editing all of the interviews that were going into the series, and I was just blown away by the content, by the conversations, by the realness and the rawness of, I guess some of those difficult situations that that materialize in this line of work, but also just the passion and the sheer determination to make a difference from all of these global experts, and them instilling their knowledge on the next generation of what's worked for them, what they've learned, and how everyone has got a part to play, I guess in helping people to live a good life, and be a positive member of society. So for me, that putting the courses together in terms of the material that went into it, I learned so much, and I haven't actually seen the full course. I've seen aspects of it, but I'm just blown away, and I'm really proud of, I guess, as a team, what we have created. And for me, it's just about getting that out there, and for as many people as possible to be able to access this so that they can go on and be cultural change agents themselves, man. So
Yeah,
like I said,
I remember us. Yeah, that's
labor
it.
of love, it's packed with so much knowledge. We have experts from all around the globe who just dedicated their time, to make an impact in this, and for me, that's just really, really special.
Were there any so right at the beginning we thought about who would we love to come and have conversations with around particular topics, wasn't it? And it was kind of like a bucket list, wasn't it? Basically, who would we love to have a conversation with that we know are just incredibly inspiring. So whether that was around how we create positive physical environments with, we talked to an architect over in Australia, and Cam, I know you interviewed Ralph Lebowski, who is an incredible leader within the prison estate. We talked about moral injury, trauma-informed practice. We had Iridian on, and I think there was absolutely what you say there about learning as we went. But the conversations were just so brilliant, and every kind of interview I went through, I was just like, that is just gold dust. That is just that's really enriched my kind of learning. So I really, really hope that those that go through it will really feel that the intentions behind this course and the values behind this course, really. But yeah, I think some of the best bits were having the opportunity to be creative, but also to meet such a wonderful range of human beings, and a lot of them are now Justice 2.0 advisors. But yeah, to learn something, and the excitement of listening to each other's, conversations. So Cam watching your ones, and Dan, you and Carrie Ann, it was quite emotional in the sense of just watching us have these conversations and fitting them into a course that's going to hopefully be accessible to a significant amount of people. And there was this one, so it's in motivating others, and we talk about motivational interviewing. And I think Carrie Ann, who's incredible at motivational interviewing, me and her did it, and I had to come up with a problem, which I won't spoil it, folks, because you've got to go on and do it. But I came up with a problem that I had and continue to have. And she tried to motivate me. And I think I just laugh at one point because she's so good. She got me right there and was just like, so on the one hand, you want to be this, but on the other hand, you want to be this. So let's just talk about that. And I was just like, oh, it's so hard. So we not only kind of do these kind of role plays, but we do them, quite hopefully quite naturally and informally. And then we had a reflective session afterwards about how could we have done it better and what was good about it. And, hopefully just trying to model what kind of conversations we would want people to have along the way. So yeah, I really hope you kind of love those. We certainly did. So okay, on to the benefits. Well, I'm really hopeful that the benefits are pretty self-evident in terms of some of the stuff we've already talked about. But let's talk a little bit about what are the benefits for learners, for organisations, and for culture change. So what do you reckon? What are the benefits for those that are going to enrol on these courses? Dan, what would you say? You are on mute, my friend.
Thank you for that. I think I'll have a look at a bit more of the organisational benefits.
Okay. Cam, what about for you then? What about the learners? What do you think the learners get from it?
I think the fact that it's multidisciplinary, so it doesn't matter where you're working in the justice system, it's accessible for everyone. It's grounded in real stories from real people and their real experiences. That just gives a real richness to the delivery and the content of the course. And I think for me, the fact that it has so many global leaders, who are bringing their experiences from different sectors from around the world, gives the course a real richness that I haven't seen anywhere else. So that's what I think our learners are going to get from this, a real global perspective of what really works, what the challenges are, and how to overcome them.
That's it. And I think, the other thing is just around relationships. And there's a really valid argument that we can't train people in relationships online, that ultimately relational work needs to take place in the room, face to face. And I absolutely get that, having studied and practiced, I guess, relational practice for a really long time now. But I think we really thought about that in the design of this. We really thought about how do we bring those relationships alive? How do we give people a real taste of what those different spaces might look like when we get too close to people, or we even desensitize ourselves from practice and what that kind of looks like. So I really hope that, for me, one of the benefits is the bite-sized nature of it, that whilst you're on your commute, you can listen to one of the audios or watch one of the videos or do one of the quizzes, or maybe think about one of the challenges or one of the reflective questions. So it's very much a kind of, you pick it up, you put it down, and you slowly grow. And with that, it kind of builds over the course of the additional courses. But you can just take one. You can just say, do you know what? I just want to know about relationships, and it works in isolation as well as a series. So lovely. What about organisations? And Dan, what are the benefits for organisations?
Yeah, so I think there was obviously some crossover from what you were just saying in terms of the bite-sized nature when we talk to organisations. Again, whether that's regime, whether that's management of time, there's a lot of pressure in criminal justice. So having it so you can pick it up and put it down whenever you have time, like the individual has time, benefits the organisation. It creates that space where people can pick up extra learning and do it in a way that's best and beneficial for them. I think there's something around the difference in variety as well. We've tried to put additional learning, whether that's around podcasts, around videos, and again, for organisations that are trying to create an environment where there's learning built into their organisation, I think they'll enjoy that element. And again, it can encourage the organisation to look at how they deliver messages a bit differently. We talk to a lot of organisations in criminal justice, and the global email is just failing. Global emails just aren't getting across to people. So it's how we can be more creative with videos of content that you were going to put in an email, but rather than doing that, you made a short 2-minute video and you've just sent that out. So I think there's lessons that organisations can learn as well in terms of how do we engage people. But obviously, the bottom line, as always with anything, but especially in criminal justice at the minute, is budget. There isn't a lot of money going around. There's lots of kind of tightening of belts and trying to kind of shave off the top. So I think, the fact we've created the course in a way that you can pick it up as individual series at £50 per course per person, or with a slight discount if you kind of purchase the whole series as a whole, again at only £325. It's very much at that low end of budget costs. I mean, when you talk about when I was still in criminal justice and was doing a foundation degree, I was still at Wellington Young Offenders, and the cost of the prison service, because it was that level, I think level 5 for foundation or level 4, because of that kind of levels and stuff like that, the amount of money in terms of outlay to get all the staff through it became something that was never going to be sustainable moving forward. And I think we talked quite openly about that when we were thinking about how do we build this, how do we make it so not only can organisations do it, but how do people who've perhaps been in prison and come out and want to do courses so that they can give back in terms of mentorship and other kind of roles in that vein. And I think that's what we've tried to do. We've really gone with the ethos of how do we get as many people to be able to do this course. And that was kind of how we came up. It had to be virtual so that people could pick it up and put it down as and when they can invest time, but also at a price point where third sector organisations can afford it, where individuals can afford it, and when public sector organisations can afford it, when obviously at the minute all their budgets are kind of being either frozen or stripped back. And I think we've tried to do that in a really ethical way to try not to isolate anyone out of getting involved in these courses.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I guess the last bit is the culture change. And I think for me, I see so much of the kind of collateral damage of poor culture, right? So let's say in a poor culture, people trust less, relationships are more kind of distant. Therefore, we're going to have problems and conflicts within teams. We're going to have grievances. We're going to have discrimination or bullying. We're going to have misconduct, whether that's around corruption or whether that's around a sense of desensitization and disengagement with the organization and the values of it. And then we have the moral injury. So, people then start burning out, or people start leaving work, or people say, do you know what? I'd rather get a job down the road where I don't have the risk of getting hurt every day. That's going to pay me more money. And I think all of these things, a lot of the time, we just put these sticking plasters on culture. Yeah, we need to set up a team of, it's all about zero tolerance around violence, and we need to deal with the symptoms of a poor culture. And I think what I would say is that this is our attempt to contribute to a really preventative model, in the sense of, if we invest in culture and if we give people the tools to bring about culture change and build meaningful relationships and maximize and magnify the impact of their craft and their work, if we do that, not only will we reduce grievances and discrimination and bullying and misconduct, not only will we reduce levels of vicarious trauma and stress and mental health that our staff are experiencing quite significantly now, but we will also bring about an environment that is conducive to reducing reoffending, and therefore having less victims. And I kind of think that's the shift we got to work on. And we got to, for me, we've got to focus more about the prevention and thinking about how can we nurture belonging? How can we nurture all the benefits that this work brings? Because I think we've all been in it, And, you know, there's nowhere else I'd rather be, because when you can make an impact, or when you can support the change of someone else, it is the best feeling in the world. And if we can give people the skills to feel that feeling, then I would just be really happy. I would just be really happy, because it is such a lovely feeling. And I think sometimes we go to work and we've grown into a version of ourselves that we maybe no longer recognize, you know, where we are really desensitized and you know, cynical and negative and quite hateful maybe, you know. So I think there's something for me about, let's be the best version of ourselves. Let's invest in this work and invest in yourselves. And hopefully through that, we can start building connections. You know, when you become part of growth, you can stay part of growth for life, you know. So when you've enrolled in these courses, it's also about the Growth Alliance, which is what we are currently developing, or the Champions Community, an environment where we can start talking to one another, and we can share knowledge and share challenges with one another. For me, this is just some of the foundational knowledge that we need, but we need that network so that we can start really applying it and you know, talk about the times when they're really, really hard, yeah, and how we can overcome that as a collective and doing that together. So that's what I would say in terms of the benefits of culture change. It's about investing in people, which I know is very cliche, but it is about a genuine investment, knowing that there's a lot of people out there that are struggling in silence at the minute, and taking their work home and not sleeping well, and coping in ways that is not conducive maybe to their long-term well-being, really. So okay, so that is pretty much the end of our kind of key kind of questions. If anyone's got any questions, I know we are streaming across lots of different platforms. Thank you, Warren, for your comment around how the course is delivered, and thank you, Carrie-Anne, for replying to that. So yeah, very much talks about all the different formats which we've already discussed, but really focus on application, like Cam said. Are there any other comments that we want to make, or any other key features that maybe we haven't talked about that might be useful to our audience, or those that are watching this on YouTube post-event? So are there any particular things? Dan?
Yeah, I suppose just one thing just to make people aware, because I don't think we've mentioned it at this time. So at the moment, this course is only available for in countries where English is kind of first language. So there isn't at the minute different language options. This is something we're looking at in the future, but for now, unfortunately, it's only available in English. So we had a question come in not just the other month in terms of could people in Gibraltar do it. Of course, it being an English principality, of course they can. They speak English, so that's not a problem. So anybody can do it kind of internationally, as long as you have the English level where you feel comfortable to do an online course independently. So it's really based on kind of your own strength level in terms of English.
I think the other thing, just to really think about, I guess, accessibility and inclusivity here, you know, we've tried really hard, and Cam is certainly gets the A star from the team in terms of making this course very accessible, in terms of subtitling every audio that we, or every video that we kind of did, but having very much to try and make it really clear and really simple in terms of its kind of language. So we've thought really clearly about that. We've thought about neurodiversity in terms of how it's laid out and how it's structured, the use of images, for example, or simpler text. So it is for all ages, you know, adult, of course, 18 plus, but it is for people that are interested in maybe, joining the justice system and working with people. So, but it is also available to, you know, a diverse range with that in mind during its design. And I think there's something about, if you are really keen and passionate about justice issues, and it does give you a really great introduction about, I guess, the realities of the job, you know, not necessarily just the challenges and how to overcome them, but sometimes I kind of think that at training college, people get kind of given this like dream of utopia about you're going to be changing lives every day, which is obviously exactly what we want. But the reality then is really, really different when people maybe go into challenging environments. So we tried to be really realistic, but also really passionate, I guess, about the kind of work that we're doing. So I really hope that kind of helps. And just to add as well what Carrie-Anne's talked about, thank you very much. So Carrie-Anne was fundamental to designing this program and squirreling all of her knowledge from, over 15 years of working in probation. But she's just noted that, there's glossary. So again, it's about maybe tricky terms that maybe are difficult to understand to support people whose English isn't their first language. So thanks, Kaz, for giving us the heads up on that, and also some of the benefits from her perspective. So building confidence, building resilience, and longevity. So this idea that, staying in the justice space, coming in with the best intentions and keeping that passion, upskilling workforces, more effective services for accessing it, a broader culture change within and across the systems, accessible, relatable, and inspiring content. And she said, upgrade your CV to stand out from the rest. So yes, that's very impressive, Carrie-Anne. That's a really good point. But all of these things I think are really, really important. Cam, any thoughts from you? Anything that we've kind of missed along the way?
Yeah, firstly, I just want to apologize for being photobombed every second. I'm sitting in the departure lounge, so I can't help that. But in terms of, I guess, Dan, I wanted to come back to Dan and ask Dan, how many places are available on this cohort? I think it's important that we talk about the cohort size that is available for people that is going to be able to come on this course.
Yeah, so in terms of that, we are growing it out. So at the minute, we've got a maximum of 120 spaces. But obviously, as they start to fill up, we will then reach out to our LMS provider and increase that. So rest assured that we will always have spaces for people to join on. But obviously, like always, we practice what we preach. We tell people that when you grow and change and develop, you should do it at a steady pace, and we do that as well. So that's why we've started initially with just around those 120 spaces, so we can really start to feel the appetite of people and grow and develop from there.
Lovely.
Yeah, I guess on that, I'm just going to say, I get a lot of people reaching out to me on LinkedIn who really want to come back into the space and make a difference, who have been through the criminal justice system, but might not necessarily have the skills outside of their lived experience. This course is really accessible and it gives you those skills to really upgrade your CV and look at jobs that are just not entry-level jobs, not just jobs that are about, I guess, being a volunteer. We know that there's a lot of, I guess, in the sector right now, there is a lot of challenges going on within the sector on how people with lived experience are, I guess, utilized and what their strengths are. So this gives people the foundation to start building to become not just cultural change agents, but also professionals in the field. So when I came into the sector, I didn't have nothing apart from, I guess, my lived experience. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I've educated myself, and now I'm an academic, I'm a professional. This is a really good grounding and a base level for anyone who is coming into the system to come and give back. And if you're working alongside any kind of charities or organizations that want to really support your growth, please reach out to them and let them know that this course is accessible and it is tailored towards everybody, and get them to support your journey of growth and transformation as well.
Yeah, and I think that's with you and Sarah's work recently, where you kind of looked at the standards for people working in these type of settings with lived experience. One of the things that came up was that legitimacy. So, as you say, Cam, they have legitimacy because they've seen it, they've lived it, and been a part of it. But sometimes, how can they break through that kind of glass ceiling? How do they gain even further legitimacy? And that's it. It's through hopefully courses like this, so that they don't just have their lived experience, knowledge and beliefs, but they've then also gone and got given the opportunity to be invested in to increase their knowledge of the sector. Yeah, really good point, Cam.
I think there's also something there about the wraparound support around that. You know, like we were really fortunate to have an incredible group of passionate consultants with lived experience that formulated those standards under the leadership of Cam, and very much said, you know, like in the event that organisations really want to employ people with lived experience to come back within a justice kind of context, but don't quite know how. I mean, hopefully the standards will really help you with that. But if you did need additional support, if you needed some kind of review or some kind of advice, then ultimately we've got just a really wonderful network. And again, it's an international network, but a wonderful network of people that are really passionate about it. And what I find really interesting is from the research we did with the LE standards, was it 80% or 74%, but over 3/4, I'm pretty sure, of people that we surveyed said that the reason why they come back into criminal justice work is for purpose, and because it matters in terms of their purpose to work. And I kind of think the narrative has changed, I think, maybe with staff sometimes, that it's seen, you know, a lot of people talk about the kind of the wages, but ultimately it's really interesting that particular group are really passionate about making that difference because they've lived it. And I would love to ignite that across all of our staff, that those that do go to work and think, do you know what, I'm just got to get through the day, or I'm just doing this for the paycheck, or I'm going to be retiring in 8 years, 6 days and 3 hours. You know, for all of those people that are maybe feeling that way, this is hopefully a course that will just ignite and inspire and reconnect, you know, like reconnect you with the reasons why you started working in this space, to increase the likelihood of you having positive outcomes, not only with your peers or your managers or your leaders, but with those that you serve. You know, that is something I feel really passionate about, is that sometimes our loyalty to service has maybe eroded over the years, and people maybe don't have the same views around it's a lifelong career and we're going to be in this space. You know, the reason we didn't attribute it to a specific role is that we know, looking at the research and the data, is that people are coming into the justice system and they're not necessarily staying for as long as they used to. Yeah, so maybe 3 years on average, staying, let's say, in prisons and then going to the third sector, or going to probation, or going into another space which is within the justice system, or leaving the justice system altogether. But what we wanted was a transferable knowledge source that would be relevant to anyone, irrespective of where you are in the justice system. And we really want to enrich that. So in the event that you get to the end of the course and say, do you know what, it would be great to have got an insight into this, just pop that in, you know, because we are really passionate about getting the best from this course and making it as multidisciplinary as possible. Because if we design that at the beginning, we're going to get a much more collaborative outcome in the end. So that's what I kind of really feel kind of passionate about. Cam, you got a friend? So yeah. Okay, so we've got 2.5 minutes. So any last words of wisdoms, folks, or any other bits that we've missed along the way, just before we finish up and let everyone enjoy the rest of their afternoon? Anything else?
I was going to say that if you're really passionate about making an impact in this space, if you're passionate about giving people with lived experience the opportunity to be a part of the solution, and you really want to make a fair and equitable society, introduce your staff to this course. For those that are volunteering, give them the opportunity to upskill so they can move forward from just being volunteers into actual paid roles. If you're working in the justice system and you're struggling in terms of your staff with training and I guess with motivation, this is as much motivation as you're going to get. It is phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that because I've been part of the creation of it. I'm saying that because the content and the honest conversations and the fact that it's 10% theory and 90% application makes this stand out heads and tails over anything else that I'm seeing currently in the system. So come and be part of our tribe, come and be part of, you know, Justice 2.0, and let's upgrade the criminal justice system together.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Cam. Very inspirational, and thanks for dialing in, because I appreciate you've got a travel day. So yeah, really appreciate that. And it's something quite cool about doing it live in an airport, I think. So yeah, it's you've clearly built curiosity based on how many people have been looking into your screen. So yeah, it's quite but lovely to have you here. Dan, any final words, any final thoughts?
No, just I hope that people go and have a look, and there is something there for everybody. So please have a look into it, and if it's something you're interested in, sign up. We'd love to have you on it.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, all of you. And I guess the last point is the intention behind it is that it brings positivity. So it's a not-for-profit. We're not here for the money. We're here for making a difference and giving people the opportunity to grow. So thanks for staying tuned, and all the best.